We'll go on to our next agenda item tonight, which I have two proclamations to issue this evening. First of all, it's my privilege to issue one for the POW MIA Recognition Day. Whereas in 1979, Congress passed a resolution authorizing observance of National POW MIA Recognition Day, and whereas that national observance now takes place annually on the third Friday of September, this year on September 16th, and whereas Air Force, Navy, and Army ROTC units from the University of Idaho and Washington State University hold an annual recognition ceremony to honor prisoners and former prisoners of war and those missing in action. And whereas this year that local observance will be held on September 9th at 10 a.m. on the north lawn of the University of Idaho Administration Building. And, pardon me, and whereas Americans are grateful for the sacrifices of heroes and of loved ones who may not know the fate of missing members of our armed forces. And whereas it is appropriate to pay tribute to personnel who never came home from combat in distant lands, to those who suffered as prisoners of war, and to all members of the military who have defended our country. And whereas the Department of Defense continues to search archives, explore foreign battlefields and burial sites, interview witnesses, and otherwise seek information about those missing from the Vietnam War, Korean War, Cold War, World War II, and other conflicts. Now, therefore, I, Nancy Cheney, Mayor for the City of Moscow, do hereby proclaim September 16, 2011 as POW MIA Recognition Day in Moscow. And I urge all residents to observe that day of honor and remembrance with appropriate activities, including the ROTC ceremony at the University of Idaho. And then again, that ceremony, although it's not on the actual national day, will be September 9th at 10 a.m. at the University of Idaho Administration lawn.
And Madam Mayor, Tim
Yes.
will be representing the city at that.
And in my absence, we're very pleased that we'll have representation by Councilmember Tim Brown. It's always a very moving event. If you can go, I encourage you to do so.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Tim.
you.
The next proclamation this evening is Recovery Month 2011. Whereas substance abuse disorders may include excessive, uncontrolled, or illicit use of prescription or non-prescription drugs, alcohol, substances like bath salts, and certain psychotropic herbs, etc., and whereas substance use disorders are serious public health problems affecting the lives of tens of millions of people of all ages and socioeconomic situations across our nation, and whereas the disorder affects families, friends, employers, and communities in addition to the individuals who are directly involved, and whereas the emotional, physiological, economic, and societal costs related to substance use disorders are substantial, and whereas substance use disorders are preventable and treatable and warrant pursuit of assistance as for other health conditions, and whereas it is important to educate policymakers, healthcare providers, employers, family members, the general public, and affected individuals that recovery is possible and help is available, and whereas the pursuits of dignity, intellectual and economic advancement, fair and decent housing, and meaningful human connections are basic rights, including for those affected by substance use disorder. And whereas Americans have the opportunity to access provisions within the Affordable Health Care Act and Mental Health Parity and Addictions Equity Act to improve their physical and emotional health while ensuring the care they need at a reasonable cost. And whereas a recent study by the Washington State University Public Policy Center indicated that for every $1 spent on treatment in Idaho, criminal justice costs in the state were reduced by $1.38. And whereas investment in treatment and social services in Idaho have been reduced. And whereas other local, county, faith-based, nonprofit, and private sector resources are necessary to meet needs for treatment, prevention, and enforcement associated with substance use disorders. Now, therefore, I, Nancy Cheney, Mayor of the City of Moscow, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2011 as Recovery Month in the City of Moscow and call upon all residents to join the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, local nonprofits, treatment providers, and communities across the nation in supporting this year's theme, Join the Voices for Recovery. Recovery benefits everyone.